You are Locked On Astros POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports Houston on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, good evening and welcome to the Locked On Astros POSTCAST, our second evening of doing this. And guess what? It's just as bad as last night because the Astros lose to the Rangers once again. Their disastrous start to the 2024 season continues, while the defending champions look like the team to beat in the American League West. We have a lot to get to throughout this Locked On Astros POSTCAST. Thank you, of course, for joining us here on the YouTube page. You'll be able to find this as well on the Locked On Astros podcast page in its audio form after every show wraps up. This episode today is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. So tonight, the Stros, well, they keep it close for a good while tonight. They were, well, in the lead for a good period of time, even if it was one run and it was gifted to you. That's okay. We all would have liked to see them go ahead and take that lead and go and get a victory. Well, the Rangers get to the Astros bullpen. You waste J.P. France's night overall. He was very good for this team tonight, giving you a very, very solid start. Overall, 5 2/3 innings, 3 runs. He gives you that every time out. You're going to live with it. You're going to say, hey, I can go win that baseball game. That's kind of been the theme to this season so far for this Astros team, is that overall, the starting pitching is giving them a chance to win every single night. It's either the bullpen or the bats. And we're seeing it right now. What's happening? The bullpen and the bats have been bad. In the bullpen tonight, you get Josh Hader. Sorry, Josh. I'm not going to dog on you tonight because you didn't pitch and do it. It's the other two guys. We all came into this season with a huge level of expectation, of course, for that bullpen because they added Josh Hader to it. Now, it overlooked some of the flaws to it, but the craziest thing is that the bullpen has actually been good except for the back three. Like, there's been some guys that haven't been great, but the biggest and most glaring struggles have been for Bryan Abreu, Ryan Presley, and Josh Hader. And flat out, the Astros will not win baseball games if that continues. But they're also not going to win baseball games until they hit the baseball. 2 runs again tonight, and they did nothing. You always have to tip your cap to the other side. John Gray wasn't very good. He only lasted 3 2/3 in the game. They got hits off of him. They got guys on base, but they couldn't capitalize. They didn't do what they needed to do. And look, when you're at this point of the season for the Astros, like any team, when it's early in the year, and this is so magnified. I mean, look, the team is now, they're like I said, they're a disaster. And they've won 2 baseball games this season. They're a half game better than the Oakland Athletics. It's unacceptable. I tweeted it a moment ago before we started to send out our link for the show tonight, and it's the truth. They are, without a doubt, the biggest disappointment so far in Major League Baseball. And that's not being rude. That's just the situation. They're 2-7. And there's a lot of outlying numbers coming into this series that tell you that they should be, better than they are. And those kind of things always will level out in a season. But when you do this to start the year, because there's probably going to be a stretch again at some point this season where they go 2-7 in a period of time. But when you do it right out of the gates, it's panic button left and right, panic button left and right. And that's the question to start the show tonight is it time to hit the panic button? I'm not going to hit it, but guess what? My finger's hovering over it. And as my finger hovers over it, if we're doing this again tomorrow night, where the Astros have lost another baseball game, which, by the way, we will be with you again tomorrow night after Astros and Rangers right here, Locked On Astros POSTCAST. Catch it on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button while you're there, please. Thank you. I appreciate it. And then go listen to this show and the Locked On Astros show over on the Locked On Astros podcast page, anywhere that you get your podcast for that. But if we do this again tomorrow night, where the Astros lose a baseball game and they look this bad and they don't hit the baseball, all these things that have continue tomorrow night. I will come on here and say, yes, it's time to hit the panic button. And it's crazy. I'm not the overreaction guy. It's 162 games. You're going to have the ebbs and flows of it. I get it. The guys that are performing poorly at the plate right now won't always perform poorly. They've always had that saying in baseball, the back of the baseball card never lies. And that's going to end up being the truth for most of them. Whether it's Kyle Tucker hitting 30 home runs this season, or Yordan Alvarez hitting 35 plus and hitting around 300 or over 300, or Jose Altuve. Well, Jose Altuve's hitting, but Jose Altuve hitting over 300 and hitting 25 to 30 home runs, or Alex Bregman at this point being a 260 hitter and hitting 24 home runs. Jeremy Pena hopefully hitting 10, 15 home runs, whatever it might be. They'll get to those numbers. They'll get hot. Like, it will happen. The cream does rise to the top eventually. But the problem with doing this early on is, one, it annoys the fan base. It pisses you off. It gives you no optimism for the season ahead, which is, look, a legit concern right now. The AL West is competitive early. The Rangers are great. They look great. They look like the defending champions, like the Astros are supposed to look coming into this season. And I said this last night, and I'm going to say it again today. The edge is not there for me. There's not that level of chip or that chip on their shoulder that I really expected this baseball team to come out with this season. And I just don't understand it necessarily. Are they not getting fired up enough? Are they not? Now, you could do all these things, and at the end of the day, if you don't put the bat to the ball and swing at the right pitches or whatever, like, that's not going to matter. But it's time to ship up, like, or at some point, some guys are going to have to ship out. There's, of course, not a lot of guys that are going to get shipped out on this team, but there are guys that are eligible for it. Looking at you, Jose Abreu, his day should be, well, I'm not going to say numbered yet, but at some point they're going to become numbered this year. I'm just looking at the box score for tonight. And again, the top half of the lineup, you get a couple of hits there late from Altuve and Yordan. But, I mean, look, Altuve, Yordan, and Tucker all have multi-hit nights. You know how many hits they had after that? One. Alex Bregman, that's it. Just one. Can't do it. Can't do it. It's not going to work. Period. End of story. And I don't think that it's going to continue long-term by any means. There's no reason I think that anybody should, because like I mentioned, the back of the baseball card matters. These guys figure it out as the season moves along. But I need a sense of urgency out of this baseball club. And if you are hitting the panic button, I don't think that there's anything wrong with hitting the panic button now at this point. It's for everybody's judgment where you're at. But 2-7 is not good at all. It's just downright horrific. It's so unexpected. And this team, good news, I guess, they're going to face Kansas City after this. I really don't know. I really don't know what they're going to do in that kind of series because, well, look what they've done so far. Are they better than Kansas City at this point? No. They're not better than anybody but Oakland, basically. I mean, look, the A's are the worst team in baseball, right? Again, you have a half game difference with or actually, excuse me, I'm actually shorting the Oakland A's. You're the same record as Oakland now. I'm feeling worse about it by the moment. And I think that that's okay. Sometimes it's okay to sit and just stew in it. And I think that tonight I'm going to stew in it. I don't want to stew in it, but it is what it is. And I hope that I'm wrong. Let's talk more about that bullpen for the Astros because the bullpen has not been good to start this season. How can they fix things? Will they be able to fix it quickly? We'll get to all of that in just a moment here on the Locked On Astros POSTCAST. Let me tell you guys right now about something that I'm very excited about. Like, your health is, I said it last night, your health is your wealth. And Factor is a great place for you. Maybe you're like me. You're on the go now. You're running around. You're very, active. You need to get yourself meals. Factor is a great place for you to get chef-prepared meals on the table in 2 minutes with Factor's ready-to-eat meals so you can get back to whatever it is you're doing this spring. Look, the weather's been fantastic. Maybe you're outside doing things. You're working out, whatever. We got out this morning, went for a couple-mile run, got a workout in. We ate our Factor meals. We're good to go on that. Look, you're looking for those gourmet meals. Try meals that feature premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, truffle butter, broccolini, and asparagus. It is fantastic. Trust me on this. Head to factormeals.com/lockedonmlb50 and use code lockedonmlb50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next box. That's code lockedon50 at factormeals.com/lockedonmlb50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next box while your subscription is active. And you know what? When you're not eating food and then you're watching games, let's talk about PrizePicks. Have you played PrizePicks yet? What are you waiting for? It is a great app. Go download the app right now. I have it on my phone. I use it every single night. I'm playing some sort of action on players, whether it's MLB, whether it's the NBA. Before you know it, football will be back. Maybe you got there's soccer, whatever it might be. I'm a big Premier League guy. You can play Premier League players as well. PrizePicks has something for every sports fan, like I mentioned, from baseball and basketball to League of Legends and everything in between. You can pick LeBron, Shohei Ohtani, Connor McDavid, Jude Bellingham, all in the same entry. PrizePicks is the best way to get in on the action on sports in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and, of course, Georgia. The fun is always there at PrizePicks, so download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. All right, back into the Locked On Astros postcast. Thank you, of course, for joining us if you're watching live on the YouTube page. If you're listening to this in the podcast form, thank you as well. It's available pretty quickly after the show ends on the Locked On Astros podcast page. And when you're there, go ahead and listen to this show and listen to their show, the Locked On Astros podcast. Great stuff. We have, of course, across all the Houston sports teams, Locked On Rockets, Locked On Cougs, Locked On Texans. Tomorrow, it's going to be a little bit of a double dip day planned for me. We got Rockets, we got Astros, so keep it right here. We've got a couple of games to talk about throughout the day tomorrow, and hopefully we can actually do one of these Locked On Astros postcasts where the Astros win a baseball game, because, again, tonight they fall apart late, and really where we're going here with the falling apart late is the bullpen, and the bullpen being two guys, Bryan Abreu and Ryan Pressly. Now, Bryan Abreu has turned himself into one of the best relievers in baseball, and Ryan Pressly has been one of those guys for a very long period of time now, and he is not that at the moment. None of those guys are any of that at this moment. They've gone out there, and they stink. And Abreu tonight comes in, Joe Espada, maybe you don't love, this is where numbers get into it a little bit. Now, look, J.P. France is never a guy that's going to go out there and blow the doors off anybody, period. We all know that. He is going to be a guy that is going to live with getting outs by contact, and that's okay. You need those kind of guys. He's an innings eater, middle to back end. He's not a middle rotation guy for a great team. He's a back end of the rotation guy, and he's a really, really good one. He's been a really, really good one since he's come up to the big leagues tonight. Maybe you didn't love that Joe Espada went ahead and took J.P. France out before he could face the Rangers lineup a fourth time. But, typically the numbers do prove it. Guys go through a fourth time of seeing a pitcher in a game, and they'll light the pitcher up. So it's not a risk that you really necessarily want to take. But you go to Bryan Abreu, and for whatever reason, was it the 2-game suspension? I doubt it. He had a normal spring training. He got ready like everybody else did this season. But he's just not completely had control this season. He gets a guy on base. He's always a little bit slow to the plate, allows the stolen base, throws a wild pitch, gets the runner over to third, and then a base hit, and there you go. Simple as that. He needs to be as locked down as it gets, because the number one guy, I think, when it comes to putting out the fires in the most high leverage situations for the Astros this season, where, it's the middle of an inning, let's just go to the hypothetical world, even though you can't do it right now because the Astros wouldn't be a postseason team or even anywhere near. But let's say they're up in an ALCS again, or an ALDS, whatever it might be, and it's the 6th inning, like it was tonight. Then you got a couple of guys on, and you need somebody to come in and strike them out real quick. You're going to Bryan Abreu, I think, first of him or Ryan Pressly, just because of his high octane stuff and his slider that's wipeout. I'm not as concerned with him as I am with Ryan Pressly right now. Ryan Pressly has been a massive issue. Now, look, he said a lot of the right things when the Astros signed Josh Hader unexpectedly there towards the end of the offseason. But the man lost his job. And there is an ego attached to every single person. I have one. You have one. There's always something in our lives that we have an ego attached to. We all think that we're great at something when we're doing it. Like, I feel like I'm pretty good at this, but they could knock me off tomorrow and say, you're not very good at this. And then you take a blow to your ego. And how do you bounce back from it? Maybe he's a guy that's going through it a little bit. He lost his job. Most runs he's given up in a regular season game with the Astros tonight, Ryan Pressly. He was bad, period. And look, they got a lot of hype before the season, a lot of hype from people about how that back end with Abreu and Pressly and Hader, whatever order you're going to put it in, Abreu in the 7th, Pressly in the 8th, Pressly in the 7th, Abreu in the 8th, Hader in the 9th, of course. They've not lived up to expectation. You'd feel a little bit better about it right now if Hader did not blow that game against the Toronto Blue Jays, and they lost that one 2-1, gave it that 2-run home run. That was just absolutely brutal for them. But nothing has been great so far for this back end that's supposed to be fantastic. And it's a lot like the hitters, and it's magnified early in the season. You go see ERAs are blown up all over the place. Pressly's ERA on the season right now is going to give you nightmares. 20.25. You know, it's a better ERA than him. And actually, he's been better than him this season, and this guy hadn't been great either. Rafael Montero, the biggest gas can on the team most times because he can't throw strikes and he gives up home runs left and right. He's got to find it. And I do think he will find it. His stuff has always been too good. It's getting into a season, trying to get yourself comfortable. And I think getting used to a new role, there's the other part of this too. This is a guy that is always definitively known that in the 9th inning, he's getting the baseball. Now, he could be called in the 6th. He could be called in the 7th or the 8th. He could be called in the 9th sometimes as well. I think there's an adjustment period. There's a coming to grips with it. He's later in his big league career, and part of it has to absolutely suck. He wanted to be the man, and he's deserved to be the man, the way that he's pitched for this franchise over the years. There hasn't been a better postseason closer in baseball in the last, really, since Mariano Rivera. This guy in the postseason has been better than anybody else. He's perfect when it comes to saves. He doesn't give up runs, and he's just not looked anything like that guy to start this season. The Astros are a little bit of a flawed team. They will tell you that they're not. They're top heavy on salary in terms of the overall numbers. Look, they're flawed in a little bit of the way that they were built as well, because I'm looking at the big picture with the farm system and everything and what they did last year to get Justin Verlander back. It'll be nice to get him. He, by the way, is pitching tomorrow in Sugar Land, so hopefully we'll have an update on what goes down for him. He's actually right down the street, not too far from me. Maybe I'll go check him out. But the Astros were flawed to an extent on how they built this bullpen. It was great that they went out and signed Josh Hader when they lost Kendall Graveman. Did they need to spend $95 million on a reliever? Probably not. They probably would have been better off, spreading that money around and getting 2 or 3 guys, because overall, there is reason to be concerned about this bullpen that they can get through a season. They got an ERA it was over 6 coming into the game tonight, probably over 8 at this point. They're going to have to, at the deadline, probably address the bullpen and get more help for it. And when you're consistently having to go and do that, guess what you're doing? You're depleting your farm system. And the Astros farm system is not good, and they brought in Dana Brown to try and fix it. And how's he going to be able to fix it if you don't keep guys in the farm system? So I'm not liking it. I know that nobody's liking it. Nobody, deep down in all of your souls, none of you trust relievers, period. You all know it. You never have. You probably never will. That's okay. They're relievers. They're like kickers in football. You're never going to completely trust them, even if they're elite. Josh Hader might be as elite as anybody. He's been the best closer in baseball for a few years now. Ryan Press has been the best postseason closer in baseball for years. Bryan Abreu might be, if he was given the opportunity to be a closer, might be right there with those two guys. but you're never going to completely trust them because they're relievers. They will figure it out at some point, but I don't like what I'm seeing so far out of this group in the early portions of the season. We're going to get to a few more things here in just a moment before we say goodbye here on the Locked On Astros postcast. Again, thank you to every single one of you watching live on YouTube. We'll be doing this every single night, so hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Always go listen to the show on the podcast pages, wherever you go get your podcast. It is on the Locked On Astros podcast page. It will say postcast up there. I looked at it on my phone earlier today on Spotify. It says postcast. The show is right there. It'll be up in its audio version here shortly after the show. When we get back, we're going to talk about the good. Was there any? Definitely the bad and the ugly from this one, and a preview of tomorrow's game with these Texas Rangers. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this. You get the most out of your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30. Get started at Robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. Let me go ahead and give you this info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer. All right, our final few minutes of the Locked On Astros postcast. Again, thank you for joining us. It's great to be back in your lives when it comes to post-game coverage. I wish I had something good to talk about because I don't have anything good to talk about because the Astros stink. It's as simple as it gets. I wish that Rangers fans couldn't chirp at me, couldn't chirp at you, couldn't chirp at the city of Houston, but right now they can. The Astros stink. They're one of the worst teams in baseball. I have the standings right here. I mentioned it earlier. The Astros at 2-7. They're right there with the Oakland Athletics. The White Sox only have 1 win. That's good. Hey, the Miami Marlins are still winless. They're 0-9. Colorado Rockies have 2 wins. San Francisco Giants have 3. So they're with that group. They're not with the group that includes the Boston Red Sox right now at 6-2, or the New York Yankees at 6-2, or the Baltimore Orioles at 5-3, or the Cleveland Guardians at 7-2, the Tigers at 7-2, the Rangers, of course, who just beat the Astros tonight at 6-2. They're not with the upper echelon like they should be. Not what we're looking for from this Astros team, of course, because you thought that, they were going to be a lot better than that. They're not doing that. They are playing like a very, very bad baseball team. I guess I should give some love to the good tonight, even though there's not really a lot of good. I mentioned him earlier, JP France. His first start, and he unfortunately gets the loss tonight. I mean, the guy goes to 0-1 on the season after giving up 3 runs in 5 2/3. He always will, tread water to an extent, give up hits left and right, and get outs. He's a pitch to contact guy, which there is nothing wrong with that at all. But I think he and Jose Altuve tonight have to be the good if we're giving out the good, the bad, and the ugly here. Jose Altuve has a 3-hit night. He's off to a solid start to his season outside of running the bases, of course, which Jose Altuve is always very bad at. But Altuve now hitting .378 on the season with his 3 home runs that he's hit so far. So those are your good. The bad has to go to the rest of the batting lineup. I mentioned this earlier. Outside of the top 4 in the lineup, no hits. That means Yainer Diaz took an 0 for 4. Chas McCormick took an 0 for 2. He at least got on base 2 times. Jose Abreu, another 0 for night tonight. Jeremy Pena, an 0 for night. Jake Myers, an 0 for night. And then John Singleton in his 1 pinch hit at bat, an 0 for as well. And when it comes to the ugly, I'm going to single this man out because it has been an atrocious start to the season for this man. Jose Abreu, as I mentioned a moment ago, 0 for 4 tonight. He is now 2 for 26 on the season. The Astros signed this man to a contract for nearly $60 million ahead of last season. Now, look, first of all, I'm not going to completely go back and revisit all that history because we all know that the man that signed him to the contract shouldn't have been in the spot where he was acting as GM. The GM who won the World Series should not have been let go, Mr. James Click. I have faith in Dana Brown, but still looking back on it, James Click should have never lost his job. Jeff Bagwell went out there and negotiated this contract with Jose Abreu down in Miami. We sent Jeff to Miami. He's got on the plane and he's down there and he's talking it out with Jose right now. It's going to be great. Guys, this is a former MVP. Forget that he's 36 years old. Forget that you're coming off of a first baseman that's late in his 30s as well. This guy's been a disaster as an Astro. Had a good postseason. I'll give him credit for that. He did finish the end of last season. You can't say strong in September because I think he still hit like 260, 250 in that month. But he did drive in a ton of runs that month. And his postseason was good. He was a big factor in that limited short period of time, which for that, if the Astros had gone on and won a World Series, okay, deal with it. Whatever. The contract's fine. They didn't win the World Series, though. I do wonder, and they're introducing guys down in Sugarland to first base to try and get them reps there because I think that they do know. First base, we are going on year 3 now. Think about it. Year 3. It's funny because those 2 years, 2022 and 2023, the first baseman in the postseason was actually fantastic. Yuli was fantastic in the 2022 postseason, a massive reason why they won the World Series. And then Abreu last year was awesome as well in the postseason. But we're going on 3 years now where first base production for this team is trash, period. It's not good. And how far into the year do you let it go with a guy like that before you cut the cord, where you just DFA him, you eat the money, it is what it is. You know, I don't know if it's even on their radar at this point. I'd be a little bit surprised if it is, but I don't think that it's crazy to wonder if it becomes a real possibility for this franchise this season. Let's hope that it's not, that he figures it out. I really came into the year hoping that Jose Abreu would give us a reason to love him. But so far, early in the year, 2-7, 9 games in, he has 2 hits. That cannot continue. And guess what? John Singleton is not the answer behind him, so they have a problem there. Tomorrow they'll they won't wrap up this series. There's still a game on Monday. 6-10 tomorrow. Ronel Blanco, first start after the no-hitter. Hopefully good things out of him. Dane Dunning will go for the Rangers, of course. After the game tomorrow night, join us right here on this YouTube channel. Or if you're just clicking onto the YouTube channel for the first time watching us tonight, hit the subscribe button. That way you get the notifications, you watch the videos, whatever, to be ready for the Locked On Astros postcast again tomorrow night when the Astros, please wrap up a win against the Texas Rangers. I don't want to do this again after a loss. And I know that you guys don't want to sit here and listen to me talk about a loss and another loss and a loss after that. They're supposed to be good. Play like it. Of course, always listen to the Locked On Astros podcast. That's where you will also find this podcast or this postcast in its audio form. But again, join us tomorrow night when the Astros get done. Thank you for joining us tonight. Again, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. And we'll talk to you after Astros and Rangers Sunday night.